The Supreme Court must act. Welcome to Law and Society. Please subscribe. And on this On Our Watch episode, I'd like to talk to you about how we have come to a point where we are now in a constitutional crisis because Donald Trump's DOJ and other departments seem not to heed Judge Sinis's order, which was produced as a result of the Supreme Court's order, and on remand, the district court would figure out the details about how to bring Abrego Garcia back. Well, the government has been stonewalling Judge Sinis from day one. Every day, a different department's some figure comes out and gives the court the same copy and paste information about Abrego Garcia, and they keep building on the case that the immigration judge had taken away his protection, or that the protective status that he has does not apply anymore because MS-13 is a gang that is designated as a terrorist organization, when there has been no due process of law given to Abrego Garcia to see whether he's a member of MS-13 or not, to see whether his legal status in the United States has been revoked or not, independent of this detention and removal without due process of law. So, they keep saying this is classified information. They keep saying, this is foreign affairs, and this court, the Judge Sinis's court, does not have the power. So the only solution that I can think of is for Judge Sinis to write an order directing the government to bring Abrego Garcia back to Maryland, no mincing of the words, and then if that ruling will be appealed. That ruling will be appealed to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court either has to just affirm it, meaning we agree with this verbatim, or they have to decide, they have to write an opinion directing Donald Trump himself, addressing Donald Trump himself, make it direct and to the point, and tell him to bring these people back. If Donald Trump doesn't, the court will have to find another way to enforce the order. And at that point, if it is not able to, we come to a point where the rule of law does not mean anything. So the government conceded in one of its updates that Abrego Garcia was held under Title 8 of the United States, pursuant to. That contradicts what was said in the memorandum before, where they said he's there pursuant to El Salvador's laws, where he wasn't pursuant to a sovereign authority of a foreign country. He wasn't there. Because this one says under penalty of perjury that it was Title 8. And if you know the basic of contract law, in contract law, you have an offer, someone makes you an offer, you accept that offer, and then you get something in return for that offer that is called consideration. What consideration did Bukele receive for accepting the offer of Donald Trump shipping these people to El Salvador? $6 million. So what does that make it? It makes it a contractual obligation, contractual relationship. So if Abrego Garcia is there pursuant to Title 8 of U.S. Code and of a contract between Donald Trump and Bukele, there's no reason, there's no other law governing this. There's no reason for any foreign law to get in the way of bringing Abrego Garcia home. So, to see whether the government ran counter to the immigration order, to see whether there was a breach of Abrego Garcia's rights as a resident of the United States, to see whether he had committed any crimes, to see whether he's part of the MS-13 gang at all. That is why you need due process of law. Due process of law actually determines whether you are guilty of a crime or not, whether you have done something that warrants your removal or not. And Donald Trump wants to forego due process of law. This is nothing short of defying the courts and compromising our separation of powers as well as checks and balances that we have between the three branches of government. It is also a reckless disregard for the rule of law that this administration has had from the very beginning. Donald Trump doesn't give deference to the lower courts, doesn't care about what they have to say. They will keep doing this spin around until the Supreme Court gives a direct order to Donald Trump, and then the moment of truth comes of whether they have directly violated the separation of powers and defied a SCOTUS order or not. Donald Trump had said that he would not defy a SCOTUS order, but we don't know what will happen. But I think that that is the way this is going. That Judge Sinis will make a ruling, that ruling will be appealed. It will then either be affirmed by the Supreme Court or the Supreme Court will bungle it again and remand it with more instructions, delaying even further Abrego Garcia's return while he is now being subjected to cruel and unusual punishment, absent and without due process of law. So I want you to think about this and the urgency of this. I think the senator from Maryland is Van Hollen, and he has made a statement that he's going to El Salvador if Abrego Garcia is not back in the United States by Wednesday to talk about what is going on with Abrego Garcia. He is the senator from Maryland. He has a vested interest in the citizens of Maryland and the rights of the citizens of Maryland, and he is going. So that's where we are with Abrego Garcia. There's no news at all about what's happening with Andrew Romero. There's no news at all what is happening with the other people who are arrested. One of the people, I can't remember his name, was just arrested while he was sitting for his citizenship interview after having been a green card holder. So he's done everything right. He's a green card holder. Why is he in Venezuela? Why is he in El Salvador? It's difficult to keep the countries right. Because, said that there are Venezuelans going to El Salvador. So sort of make it an international hodgepodge. So with that, I'll move on to a couple of other news stories that I thought was important for us to wrap our minds around. Washington Post says the Trump administration proposed to cut the budget of the State Department by almost half, according to an internal memo, with funds for humanitarian assistance, global health, and international organizations facing dramatic reductions. So Donald Trump continues to move our government and our country away from the global alliances that we have honored for decades to be able to stave off dangerous pandemics like the HIV pandemic and even Ebola. Ebola has a turnaround time of 48 hours. If that somehow gets on American soil, it'll be very difficult to contain it. It'll be localized, but it will kill because it has a very, very high kill rate. It's a hemorrhagic fever, and you essentially bleed out. And American government was providing, or these organizations, these health organizations, with funding so they can ensure that these diseases don't get out of hand. With not providing HIV awareness, treatment, prevention programs, the rate of HIV will not only go up in the countries in Africa where they are rampant, but also in the United States, also in other countries around the world. Next story, news coming out from CNN and every other source you can think of said that Harvard University has rejected the Trump administration's demands for policy changes, putting nearly $9 billion in federal funding at risk. Kudos to Harvard. But that should be the standard. That should be the standard. That should not be something to aspire to. That should be the standard. Our educational institutions need to stand up to Donald Trump's tyranny. Our major law firms, which lawyers are trained to be ministers of justice, we hold the line on the rule of law. We are supposed to stand up to the lawlessness of Donald Trump. And these big law firms need to do that instead of bowing down and providing millions of dollars of pro bono services to Donald Trump's causes. I bring this up to you in this episode of On the Watch because On the Watch accepts the truth of where we are. These things are happening on our watch, and there's very little that we can do about it. So if we accept it and then start looking for solutions, the solutions we get may prove to be better than if we stand in defiance without building anything productive and constructive in the meantime. So we have to accept the horror that is ongoing right now, report it to everybody, and then we have to take steps to make sure and think forward to make sure what can happen specifically with how we maneuver around these problems. So, thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe, and I'll get back to you again as soon as I hear more about these cases.